Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about scale, what scale means in art and how we understand it. A lot of people get scale and proportion confused, and we're going to talk about proportion in a couple weeks when we start our proportion project, but today I want to just focus on scale. So scale can be thought of in two different ways. The first is how two objects compare to each other in size. So for example, the scale of my phone is bigger than the scale of this box. So we're using scale just to say like what thing is bigger and what thing is smaller. So bigger, smaller, if I had another box that was the same size, then they would be the same scale. And so in art, we can do three different types of drawing when it comes to scale. And the first type is a drawing that is done to scale. And something that is done to scale is the exact same size on your piece of paper as it is in real life. So if I wanted to draw this box to scale, I have a couple of different options. I could try to just, freehand it and make it the approximate size. Maybe not the easiest way when I have a small object like this. I could trace around my object, and my tracing is going to be a little bigger, and it doesn't really teach us any drawing skills to trace around this. But if I was, cutting out a stencil or something and I needed to work fast, tracing around this might be fine. Unfortunately, because the lid is sticking up a little bit, my line isn't perfect here at the top. So that's another option. Or I could use my ruler and I could measure if I wanted to be precise and say this is 1 3/4. I'm just going to write that down. By looks like 1 5/8. So it's pretty close to being a square, but it's actually not a perfect square. So to draw this, I would just measure down 1 3/4. And I have too much stuff on my desk to do this easily. I would say 1 5/8. I'm just going to put 2 marks down for myself and connect to those 2 marks to get a straight line. And there I have my box. So this box that I just drew is what is referred to, as I said, as to scale, meaning it's the same size in the drawing as it is in real life, or I can represent that as a ratio, 1-to-1, or even as a fraction. So in math, these are going to be the same thing. I'm just telling the viewer that there's a comparison here, that one of these boxes is equal to one of these boxes. So that's how I draw something to scale. And you guys have done scale drawing before without realizing that that's what you're doing. But in a lot of art, we draw things that are not to scale. So we draw things that are either bigger or smaller than what they are in real life. So if I wanted to do, let's say, a whole drawing of a figure on this piece of paper, obviously that's not to scale because a regular human person is not, 8.5 inches by 11 inches like this piece of paper is. So I am going to draw that figure smaller. So I am decreasing the scale. So I can say that it's going to be small scale if I make something smaller. So for this box, let's say I want to do a 1-to-2. I just wrote 12. Let's correct that. I could also write that as 1/2. It means that for every one of these real life boxes, I could fit 2 smaller boxes inside. So it basically means I'm cutting the size in half by 50%. And in drawing, often you're not doing a lot of these like really technical like measuring. You would do this if you were in an architecture class with Miss Berry. You're gonna need to know like all the ratios and stuff. But as an artist, I really don't use these ratios. I kind of eyeball things and I say, well, I want to fit this whole figure on my page, so I think I want the head to start here and the feet to start here, and then I kind of work from there. So don't worry if you don't like numbers, you're not going to have to use a lot of these numbers. So if I want to make this 50% smaller, again, I could use my ruler, or I could just kind of eyeball it and say, well, this is the actual length, and so, you know, I'll take what looks like half of that. And I could check that. It looks like it's a little small, maybe a tad small if I want it to be 1:1. We can even make it into a little cube. So I've just shrunk this down. So I've decreased the scale. If I wanted to make this bigger, I could increase the scale. So I could do large scale. And so I would just make my drawing bigger than its real life counterpart. So this was almost 2 inches. So I could make this, you know, almost 4 inches. And now comes the kind of estimating part, because you guys don't want to watch this video forever, and I could go in with my ruler and make my lines more even, but you guys get the idea. So when we're scaling something up, we're making it bigger. So we say we scale up when we're making something bigger than its real life counterpart, or we say we scale down when we're making something smaller. Since you guys are working on recreating images of famous monuments, unless those famous monuments happen to be miniatures, which they're probably not, you're going to be scaling down to fit onto your 8x8 or 10x10 mirror, as opposed to scaling up. You would scale up if there was something really small that you were drawing, you wanted to draw it bigger. So for example, if I wanted to draw one of these fasteners, I could draw that fastener many, many times the size that it is in real life. I could draw an extra large fastener, and that would be scaling it up. But for our purposes for this project, you are probably going to be scaling this drawing down.